The worst sin that a movie adaptation based on a famous character and world with unique attributes can commit is not sticking to those elements and not sticking to the things that made a character great in the source. Fortunately, after a disaster like gagging Deadpool in the worst film of the series, which makes you cringe even thinking about it, it's like taking away the Joker's nihilistic mindset, they finally came to their senses and made an independent film based on these wide-mouthed anti-heroes showed that sticking and being loyal to the unique characteristics of a character does not turn into a famous and admirable result. After the success of Deadpool, it was Wolverine's turn to get his right with Logan after 17 years of cinema. A right that has been trampled on pitifully all these years. The 13-year-old age rating of the X-Men films has always been Wolverine's most significant obstacle to flourishing. Wolverine is the angry werewolf known more than anything else for his sharp claws and his love and compulsion to use them. When he falls, the one who causes so much harm to the body of his enemies with these claws that the killers of slasher movies are surprised and admire. But the studio's efforts to attract younger audiences meant that we never saw Wolverine at his Wolverine best. Logan isn't just a great comic book superhero movie, it's also great cinema. In the tired, uncreative, and repetitive atmosphere of superhero movies, Logan shows what a real movie in this genre should look like and raises our expectations for future products in this field. It is not a black film that is different, but it has a black story to tell. Logan doesn't pretend to be like a grown-up Batman v Superman, and it doesn't offer cartoonish and artificial action and conflicts like Captain America: Civil War. We are in 2029, and no new mutants have been born for almost a decade, and most of the old mutants have died for unknown reasons. Wolverine is one of the few mutants alive who lives in secret and makes a small living as a limousine driver. His power of recovery is waning, and old age is weakening his eyes and dulling and reviving bad memories of his past. It turns out he is taking care of one of the most persecuted people in the country. Professor Charles Xavier is in his 90s and is recognized by the US government as a weapon of mass destruction because he can no longer control his powerful mind. Meanwhile, Logan is looking for a way to buy a boat and move to the middle of the sea with Charles so they can spend the rest of their lives without harming anyone. At first, Logan refuses to accept the mission, but finding the hiding place of the evil forces that want Laura forces them to go down the roads of the apocalypse, and Logan is forced to do things he did in his younger days in retirement. They are not as exciting and heroic as their youth, they are dull. What makes Logan a great movie is that there are no superheroes fighting aliens, deadly robots, or crazy clowns. Instead, we deal with characters busy doing a series of ordinary tasks, things we all do. Characters who need only basic security and care, can't afford medicine, and are looking to make their retirement dreams come true. No more Professor X is roaming around his school teaching his young mutant students. Wolverine is no longer involved in major international conspiracies. The former raves and the latter takes care of the former. The film takes place outside the glitz and glamour of conventional comic book films. They have been replaced by many driving on desert roads, staying in cheap motels, and filling up gas at roadside gas stations. In this way, the film reminds us that the story surrounding these characters deals with more minor and personal issues. The result is a delightful camaraderie between the characters that are either entirely out of comic book movies or don't feel artificial and forced like what happened in Avengers: Age of Ultron. Logan makes the characters' psychological chaos and messed up world palpable. The movie doesn't try to simplify them with the excuse of it's just another comic book movie.
You know the drill. Get the hell out of here.
Unlike the previous X-Men movies, which were always the force that allowed the heroes to win at the last moment, Logan has a muddier atmosphere. Although the film uses the familiar structure of comic book films, its action and emotional scenes are never presented as entertainment. The severed heads and a lot of blood and bleeding in the film are more than an attempt to be faithful to the character of Wolverine. It is a means to paint the scary and bitter reality that is usually ignored in other films of this genre. You can see this in Logan's anger when he sees the X-Men comic books. Stories that do not reflect the real pain and suffering of these characters. This fact is why the film focuses on the wounds and bullet holes on Wolverine's body many times throughout the film to imprint his internal and external struggle on the audience's mind. The decline and fall in this film are so remarkable that it makes watching it a difficult task. Another best feature of the movie is that it doesn't exaggerate. One of the biggest and most common problems of blockbusters these days, especially the superhero type, is their inability to tell visual stories, trust the audience's intelligence, and explain everything. Mangold does not use explanatory dialogues at all, either in explaining this alternative world or in explaining the illnesses and feelings of his characters. For example, we know that the world of 2029 is in a state of ruin, but the film never goes into details and only uses its illustrations to pay attention to its desolate and barren atmosphere. We know that something terrible happened to Charles in the past that killed several X-Men and regular people. Still, the movie never goes into detail, letting us see the significance of it through Patrick Stewart's broken face.
I'm working on it.
Your turn. Had a rough night.
Best of all is the story of Laura's life as a fatherless weapon, a girl who struggles with balancing her childhood and the anger caused by her tortures. Mangold knows that we have heard this story many times. So, instead of repetitive and cliched dialogue, relying on a talented and capable child actor like Daphne Kane allows her to bring the audience closer to her inner conflict in a better way. To the extent that even Laura's character is silent in 95% of the movie's moments, and everything is devoted to finding visual equivalents to describe Laura's relationship and role in the story.